Hello and welcome to the podcast For the Love of Chiropractic. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Freeman. Recently, I've had people asking me, Robert, why are you doing this podcast? And what I tell everybody is the podcast is exactly what it's supposed to be. It's for the love of chiropractic. It's important that we help more doctors worldwide to become more successful. Me and my team spend our time and money bringing you this podcast every single week simply for the love of chiropractic. And in exchange, we ask for two things. Number one, use the information to make yourself and your practice the best it possibly can be. And number two, share the podcast with other doctors to help them along the way to be more successful. And you watch, they'll thank you too. Hello and welcome to Secrets of My Success, part of For the Love of Chiropractic podcast series. On each episode, I'll be interviewing one highly successful doctor or business person, asking them what are their 3 keys of success or secrets they've used to make themselves so highly successful. So let's get started with today's show. On this week's episode, I get to spend time chatting with a doc whose practice is incredibly well respected in his community and has been for over 25 years. His practice has collected well over $1 million for each of the past 10 years. He's a great family man, been married for 25 years, and has 3 great kids. So let's listen to the success secrets of my friend, Dr. Jeff Wallace. I am so glad that you could make the time to join me on the phone today. So for the listeners' benefit, tell me, how long have you been in practice?
25 years.
That's awesome. And just out of curiosity, where'd you graduate from?
Life Chiropractic, College West.
Oh, you went to West. All right. So how did you become a chiropractor?
Long story short, approximately 28 years ago, I got into a vicious car accident, and a friend of mine referred me to a chiropractor. While I was taking pre-med classes at Rutgers University, I had no idea what a chiropractor was. So I decided to go to this chiropractor to help me with my injuries. I went to the chiropractor, and I loved it. And I said, boy, I looked around, and every time I went in, I said, man, people walk into this office happy, and they walk out happier. So I talked to Dr. Cobb, who was my field doctor back from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and I asked him about the profession, and one thing led to the next. The next thing I knew, he steered me to Life Chiropractic College East, and then I transferred after a year. So that situation got me into the profession. I never looked back. I loved it ever since.
That's really cool. So you graduated from Life West, and then what? You opened or you associated? What'd you do?
So I associated. I moved to Maryland, and I associated with somebody for about 2 years, and I decided it was time to start my own practice. So I found a little practice in Westminster, Maryland to buy. Mm-hmm. I bought the practice and have grown the practice 5-fold.
That's really, really cool. So you took a practice that was already established, and then, as you just said, you grew it 5-fold. So what makes your practice unique? Because I'm sure you're not the only practice in Westminster.
I'm not. I have to tell you, it took a lot of hard work, a lot of interaction with the community. I feel like I'm a pillar in the community. I have a great rapport with many people, business owners, politicians. I've treated judges' wives. I've treated county commissioners, and a host of other people. So just ingraining myself into the community and getting to know so many people, it has been a complete blessing for me.
So by being part of the community, you feel like that makes your office unique and sort of stand out from some of the other offices in the area?
I feel like my practice is so stable. It's such a warm, welcoming place. It's like a family. When patients come in, I mean, there were times patients have come in and have seen people that they haven't seen in 20 years. And it just turns into like a fantastic waiting room. It's just a really great place.
Don't you love that when that happens?
I love it. So, this was, something I was going to talk about later. Just people like coming to my office. I've created a special atmosphere where people really like coming there. I give them a reason to come.
So I guess that's really the crux of our interview. And what I really want to hear about so when you think about the success that you've been able to cultivate and create, what is that special sauce that how do you create that? What are your keys?
Okay. Well, then I'll start with number 2. I give my patients everything I got. In other words, I give 125% to the patients that come into my office unconditionally. So they feel it. And when they feel it, I mean, I've said this before, I have patients that would take a bullet for me because I just give it everything. And when they feel it, they, as a coach would say, pay, they stay, and they refer. Mm-hmm. So I would say half of my new patients, if not more, are referrals. And that's because I just give them everything I got, and they know it. They trust me. They ask me questions even about medicine. Sometimes I don't have the answer, but they really trust me, and I've earned it.
I love that. And obviously, I've been in your office because we've been friends for so many years. In fact, I was just there getting adjusted the other day. You showed me an interesting little statistic that you keep off on the side, and I hope you don't mind me saying it publicly.
Not at all.
So when you look down your list of patients, there's a bunch of them that you put a check next to. What does the check indicate?
Patients with a check next to? I don't know.
All right. So when we were talking about it, the ones that had a check next to it were the percentage of your patients that are maintenance patients. They're not there just for the pain. They've been there.
Okay. So I keep stats on everything down to the penny, down to the day, down to the patient, everything. All right. So that stat told me that 20% of my practice are maintenance patients. People that come in once a week, once every other week, once every 3 weeks. They get it, they understand, they get adjusted, and they do it religiously. It's part of their life.
Right. You couldn't stop them from coming in because they know it's that important.
Bingo.
Yeah, I love that. When you showed that to me, I thought, oh man, you know what? His people get it. They know it. That's just phenomenal. I love that. So you started with giving them 125% is your number 2 key to success. So obviously I got to ask you, where do you want to go now? You want to talk your number 1 or your number 3?
Okay. Well, let's start with number 1.
Okay.
Key to my success, I would say coaching. Coaching. Many years ago, my first coach told us, he said, listen, great chiropractors aren't born, great chiropractors are trained. And I couldn't agree with that. I could not agree with that more than 100%. Mm-hmm. Get what I'm saying? So I've coached basically my entire career. And I've had quite a many coaches over the years. I could spit out names if you want. I don't have to.
No, not necessary.
I will say one of my coaches, and that's you, Dr. Freeman.
Oh, okay, well, thank you.
I coached with you for 5 years in my practice tenure. And there is so much to learn about chiropractic when you get out of school. As far as just communication skills, probably is the largest. How to acquire new patients. And through all the coaches, I've picked and chosen what works for me and have used that as part of my repertoire in building the practice. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel.
Amen.
And so, I consider myself, am I a dinosaur at this point? I don't know. But I feel like I do things the old-fashioned way. I use my hands, I roll my sleeves up, and just learning from these coaches how to communicate. Communication skills are one of the utmost important aspects in becoming a successful chiropractor.
I couldn't agree with you more. As I've said so many times on this podcast in the past, business is expensive, and there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. If somebody can show you the mechanism, the procedure, point out the things that are important in a clear, concise way, and you can grow into them and apply them, it is such a time and money saver.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Most of the successful chiropractors I know have spent many a weekend in coaching courses and many weeks speaking to their coaches and just refining what you have.
Right. And talking to so many different coaches as I have, and certainly you have, obviously, in your time in practice, everybody looks at things a little bit differently, and you're at a different place in your career. So there's a different message to take home. You learn something from everybody, even though sometimes they're saying the same things, and very often they're saying very different things. It's a growth process, and that's how you create $1 million+ practice.
Bingo. And I've even told my associates, you've learned a lot, and we've all had coaching, but you put things in your words. You make it real for you, and you'll resonate with your patients, and they will get it.
Exactly.
We're all saying it's just how you say it might be a little different.
Exactly. So, and again, you know this and I know this, there's multiple doctors in your office, there's multiple doctors in the practice that I work in and that I used to own. And right, while you have the same basic message, you're providing phenomenal chiropractic care, you say it a little bit different, excuse me, and the person hears it differently, or they just hear it, period.
Right, they hear it and they get it.
Yeah, exactly. So coaching's important, obviously. Giving it your all is incredibly important. What's a third one?
Okay. I will say staff development. Staff development.
Let's talk more about that.
All right. So, I try to train my staff from within. Honestly, I don't think I've ever taken my staff to a seminar. Mm-hmm. One, it's expensive. Two, it takes constant training because you've spent, 4 years in chiropractic school. You understand it. And we, after 4 years of chiropractic school, we still don't get it 100% until we start really learning and coaching and getting into the real world.
Exactly.
So, and staff come and go. It's just the nature of the business. As one coach told me, we're not in the chiropractic business, we're in the hiring business. So,
I love that. I didn't say that, but I love that.
Right. So, you train your staff, you talk to them, they make mistakes. You don't yell at them. You show them and you show them and you show them. And they really do start to get it. Then they start to see the results of your office and they start to interact with the patients and get a feel for how wonderful things and how great things really are. So you train your staff. I respect my staff. I treat my staff like gold. And when you treat them like gold, they will treat your patients like gold.
Oh, exactly. And I couldn't agree. Excuse me. I couldn't agree more with you with what you just said. You show them, you train them, that you don't yell at them. Everybody makes mistakes. Absolutely. And you train and you retrain and you keep training. And whatever motivates each individual person, and now we're talking about staff members, if it's money, fine. You know what? As the practice gets busier, they're going to earn more money. If it's relationships, as there's more people in the office, they're happier because there's more people in the office. If it's really connecting with people, as those people are receiving great ongoing chiropractic care, then the CA, the staff person, gets to build a relationship with that person because they're talking, maybe it's 3 times a week, about whatever's going on in each of their lives, primarily the patient's life. But patients do want to know something about what's going on with the staff's life also. That's why they ask.
That's right. And staff, it's more than money. They want to be acknowledged.
Exactly.
They want to be acknowledged for the good work that they do. And so, I constantly try to just communicate with my staff, talk with my staff, get down and dirty with them, one-on-one, say, hey, let's talk about this, or if there's a problem, let's get things out in the open. And, so when staff are happy, patients come in, they see a warm, receptive, happy, fun office, and it just grows, it reverberates. And so patients see that. They see when an office is in disarray, because we've all been there, right?
Sure.
And see when an office is working just really well. And when you create a really happy environment and your staff are happy, patients love it. I can't tell you how many times patients have come in and said, I just love coming here because everybody's so nice and friendly and people care. But it comes from the top. It comes from you, the doctor. You're the one that sets the pace with that.
Absolutely. Over the years, I've been in many, many chiropractic offices, and I observed something in your office that I don't think I have ever seen before. And it works incredibly well for you. And I don't know that you even realize this. What I'm talking about is when you walk in your office, obviously you have the front desk people, and they do a great job. And then there's a quasi wall, and behind that wall is where your office manager sits. So she's got a pulse on what's going on. Okay.
Right.
Next to that is where you have the bullpen where the CAs hang out, the floor CAs hang out, which is near your therapy area. But in between those 3 points, there's a small countertop area that's at desk height. And the times I've been in your office, I have observed either you or one of your associates will be sitting at that desk handling something that needs to be handled, some paperwork issue, checking on something, cleaning something up, whatever it is. But it's really, really interesting because that seat, that desk, is literally at the center heartbeat of your office, if you think about it.
I never thought of it that way, but you're right.
And by the lead doctor, not or any of the doctors for that matter, not hanging out at the front desk, because that's disturbing to the front desk flow and it removes the authority from the front desk people.
Yeah.
By the doctor not hanging out in the business manager's office, because look, I'll say she, could be he or she, it's usually a she. She's got stuff to do. She doesn't have time to chit chat with the senior doc or the associates. And if the doc is hanging out in the therapy area, again, while that's great for patient relations, it can slow things down. But by being in that seat at that desk, everybody knows you're there. You're handling what needs to be handled, and you have a pulse of what's going on. You can feel the vibe of the office, and you're creating the vibe of the office. And that's unique about your office.
Interesting. I never thought of it like that, but all hands on deck.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not somewhere that everybody hangs out all the time. Again, I've seen you sitting there or one of your associates, and I've seen times where there's one doc sitting and there's another doc standing right there, and you're chit-chatting about something that seems important. I can't hear the entire conversation, obviously, but you're handling stuff, and everybody knows what's going on. There's a buzz and a hum with your frankly very busy, successful office, and I really respect and admire that.
Well, thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, it's
kind of comical. Yeah,
it's a very unique setup that you have right there. And how that works. So the doc is not always just hanging out back in their little corner. When there's something to handle, they're out on the floor. Everybody can see them, and they're busy doing something. I love that.
I like sitting up there doing my work because, I listen to the front desk, I listen to the office manager, and when I say all hands on deck, running these offices is not easy, and you got to just be involved in everything.
Oh yeah, well, and I hope I'm not betraying any trade secrets here. Your office, will routinely see over 100 people on any given busy day.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right. That's 2 or 3 docs. Everybody's happy. Everybody's getting everything they need. The patients obviously love you. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
Yes. Thank you. Yep. There's a lot going on, and really it is nonstop, all the ins and outs and variables when you're dealing with insurance companies, front desk, what they're saying, how they're saying it, how they're answering the phones. So you listen, when you make little comments, you kind of correct. And it works out great. You're 100% correct. But you got to be there. You got to be involved.
Right, and obviously that's one of the toughest parts of owning a practice, in my opinion, is you're wearing so many different hats so quickly. You can't wear multiple hats at the same time. You cannot be in the room adjusting the patient and be listening to what the front desk is saying. You have to be with the patient 100% the way I know you are.
Absolutely.
And and when you're at that command desk, as I now call it, yes, you're listening to the front desk, you're letting them do what they need to, and then at the appropriate time correcting them, not in front of the patient, obviously, but hey, let's clean that up.
Absolutely. That's 100% correct.
So here's my question. So is it possible, in your opinion, for a doc in today's world who is just getting out of school or their practice isn't as successful as they want it to be, is it still possible to build a big successful practice in today's world and environment?
I have to say, absolutely, 100% yes.
Why do you say that? And I agree with you.
I go back to the communication skills, and it's something that I would say to build a successful practice, you have to acquire those skills, and there's a lot to acquire. You have to roll your sleeves up and get out there and do screenings and market and just get back to the basics and the fundamentals. I mean, I know a lot of doctors also that don't have a practice my size. And I know doctors that bellyache and complain about how bad things are. And, I listen to them and I'm like, well, things could change very rapidly. You could help these people within a few months. You could get their whole practices turned around.
Yeah.
Right? And anybody could build a big practice. You just have to work at it.
Yeah. As another doc said to me, you just have to roll up your sleeves and be willing to go to work.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You have to be willing to work.
All right.
And work hard.
So I've got to switch gears because unfortunately our time is starting to run tight. So Jeff, tell me, how would you define business success? What does that mean to you?
Business success, making money, building a big practice. That's business success. Helping people, having fun, making money.
I love that motto.
And we all know who said that.
Absolutely. But our friend and previous guest on this podcast, Dr. Noel Lloyd.
Yes.
So then my second question, and it's probably even more important, how would you define personal success?
My happy marriage, my 3 wonderful kids, my big, beautiful house, my vacation time, my personal time, my play time. It's just a well-rounded picture. And you need to be happy with yourself.
Ooh, so being happy with yourself and having a well-rounded life, not just the money and the big practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is so true. I couldn't agree more. Wow. Dr. Jeff Wallace, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with me today. Your practice is just a beacon in the community, and I know that because I've been to your office personally. And again, I want to thank you personally for taking the time to share your wisdom.
Dr. Freeman, thank you for having me on. It has been a pleasure.
All right, and that's our show for today. If you have a question about today's show or your own practice, feel free to reach out at fortheloveofchiropractic.com. Before making changes to your practice, be sure to seek legal advice regarding those changes and regulations in your state. For the Love of Chiropractic is an RGF production, all rights reserved. And thanks for listening. Original music provided by Hunter Rich Music.